Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. This will be a relatively brief addendum to the previous episode. There are two things that I actually meant to include, but in the heat of the moment, I forgot. So I will mention those two things now. First, a really good debater. And again, I'm not talking about people who engage in online debates. In fact, I would advise anyone to stay away from online debates, since, at least for myself, I have never seen a so-called online debate that was actually a debate, meaning that followed the rules of logic and argumentation. But in a true debate, meaning a debate which is, say, conducted by a debating organization or a debating society, sometimes the debating coach will say to you, I want you to debate in favor of this. And that may be a position that you totally disagree with. Let's go back to the evolution creationism thing. Say you accept evolution, but the coach says, I want you to argue in favor of creationism. Now, on first blush, one may think, how can the person do that? It's very, very simple, because debates have nothing to do with truth. One is not making a truth claim. One is simply introducing arguments and trying to form a conclusion based upon those arguments and avoiding making any logical fallacies and hoping that at the end, one's evidence will be seen by the moderator as being superior to the evidence presented by one's opponent. So it should not matter. And I have seen people do things like that. Literally debate a position that they disagree with. It can be done, and there should be no more difficulty doing that than debating a position that one agrees with. If one is engaged in a true formal debate, a debate that is actually based on debating rules, it should not matter whether one agrees or whether one disagrees with the subject that one is debating in favor of. That's the first point. Second thing, this is a reference to a particular person that I knew back when I served as a chief administrator in the great debate room on Pal Talk. That room no longer exists, at least not by that name. Another guy took it over under a new name, but its attendance is nowhere near as large as it used to be under the previous name. I think that the person who owned it before got tired of it, and so he just simply moved on. He's a busy man. He runs a farm, and I think he just felt after about 10 years that that was enough, and he wanted to devote his time to other kinds of matters. But back when I was a super administrator in his room, and there were about 6 or 7 of us, I think, who were super admins in his room, there was an Orthodox Jew, not a terribly smart person, to be honest, who would periodically make these statements about how much he hates Christianity. And whenever he would say that, I would post something just in text, not on mic, because I would never go on mic to debate anybody. What do you mean by Christianity? Which Christianity are you talking about? Are you talking about Protestantism, Eastern Orthodoxy, Oriental Orthodoxy, the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, or something else? But he always ignored me. He never once responded to what I was saying, and that was certainly well within his rights. However, because he was so vague, if that was a genuine debate, he would have lost. but it was not a genuine debate. It was simply one of these fanciful online debates that pretend to be debates. And so sometimes he would win in the eyes of the cheering section, and sometimes he would lose. But really, as someone who knows the rules of debating, as someone who has judged formal debates, really, he always lost. But then again, his opponents almost always lost as well, because nobody in that room understood what a debate was. Now, I will tell you the one time that I got him, and I am not necessarily happy about this because of the way it turned out, but maybe in spite of that, it gave him some food for thought. That's all I can think of. Now, again, he hated Christianity, whatever he meant by Christianity. I have no idea. Maybe all Christianities. He certainly hated the New Testament. In a single conversation, a single time on the mic, he made the following statements. First, he said, the New Testament is false because it is nothing new. It is nothing new. In other words, what he was saying was that the New Testament is entirely copied from the Old Testament, and therefore it is not new. You can't make a statement that is simply a repeat of the past and claim that you have come up with something new. Okay, he can say that if he wants, but then he would make a second so-called argument, and that is that everything in the New Testament is false. Those two statements, as I pointed out to him, are irreconcilable. Because first, you are saying that the New Testament is entirely copied from the Old Testament, and second, you are saying that nothing in the New Testament is true. So effectively, you are saying that those portions of the Old Testament, or the Tanakh, which is the Jewish term for the Old Testament, that nothing in the Tanakh, or at least those portions of the Tanakh, are true. He could not refute what I was saying. I mean, who could? The problem was nobody in the room knew how to deal with him. And I don't know why. I guess they did not know the rules of debating, but nobody ever said that. After long periods of thought, I decided to confront him with that. What happened? He left the room and never came back. I embarrassed him. Now, my intent was not to embarrass him. Obviously, I wasn't trying to embarrass him. I was trying to make him think more clearly. What I hoped he would say is, thank you for that information. That is a valid point, and I will need to consider it and rethink what I just said. That would have been fine. That's what you would ordinarily expect a person in a debate to say. But he could not say that, because to the average online so-called debater, acknowledging a mistake is basically a failure, basically means that you have lost. Now, in a formal debate, is that true? No. But in many online debates, which are not debates, then that is true. Acknowledging a failure is basically saying, okay, I have lost. But that's not true. You can acknowledge a mistake. You can say, well, yeah, you made a good point. Thank you. And I will need to think about that more. That is a proper thing to say. But he could not bring himself to say that. So he left the room and never came back. Again, I hope that he thought about what I said, if not then, later on, that it stayed in his mind, and he eventually came to terms with it and realized that he needed to think about the subject more clearly. Of course, I don't know. For the time being, this has been Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day, and an even better day tomorrow.